Oh, it's live? Are we live? I guess we're live.
We are live.
I was trying so hard to make this a good intro.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Carlos Castellanos, founder of DrawnBySuccess.com and the creator of Aldo, the nationally syndicated comic strip. And I'm here with my buddy Bob Ostrom. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, I'm doing great, Carlos. Thanks for the introduction, man. So we have a guest with us today, Carlos.
Yes, we do. We have someone that I had the pleasure of meeting just a couple of weeks ago through a mutual friend. His name is Brad Gosse, and he's a marketer, entrepreneur. He's got an appreciation for art. I don't know that he would consider himself an artist, but we'll talk about his company that he founded called Vectortoons.com. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Tell everybody how you got started, first of all, in your internet marketing and entrepreneurial journey.
So I've been an entrepreneur for about 21 years. I started when I was 19 years old with a T-shirt company, and quickly kind of learned that the T-shirt business wasn't very lucrative unless you were, sort of in the top 1% of T-shirt companies. But in that process, this was back when the internet was pure dial-up. Nobody was really using it for anything except for tinkering around and sending emails. And I built a website for my business. I learned from the ground up. I went and bought one of those giant Bible-sized books on HTML and learned how to build my own website. And rather than getting more T-shirt deals, which is what I thought the website would bring me, I got a lot of people contacting me saying, "Hey, how'd you get this website up? Can you help me get mine done?" And so, followed the money and started doing websites for people. And I quickly learned that also, had sort of a point where it didn't scale. And I got into adult entertainment because in the late 1990s, the only thing that was selling on the internet, there were three things that sold on the internet, and they all began with P: porn, poker, and pills. And I'm not very good at poker, and I'm a healthy guy. I'm not into pills. So porn was where I, stuck my flag, so to speak. So I did that for about a decade. I was actually, I'm pretty well known in the adult entertainment space online because I was #1 for porn on Google for 18 months, getting about 250,000 visitors a day to my website. I fluctuated from #1 to #5, sort of over that 18-month period.
And that's got to be quite an accomplishment in the porn industry. I mean, because porn is like, that's got to be hard to break into that upper echelon.
Yeah, dude. I mean, other than Justin Bieber, I don't think there's a more sought-after search term on the internet. It was one of those things where we had a really big business in adult, doing a lot of different things, and that was just SEO was just one of the facets of my business, and we did a lot of high volume video encoding, a lot of techie kind of stuff. But it was an interesting time, and I really liked that business because. Well, obviously because it was porn, and I'm a dude, and obvious reasons. But I actually really liked the business because I'm a tech nerd, and adult entertainment was kind of on the forefront of all of the stuff going on online. We were buying the biggest hard drives and the fastest servers, and all the coolest technology. I used to walk into my local computer store, and the owner would just, he could see the dollar signs every time I walked in because I'd be like, "Can I get?" This is back before terabyte drives were even a big thing, and I'd walk in and say. Can I get a case of 20 terabyte drives? And he'd look at me like, what? And he'd have to order them in. And every time I walked into his store, I could see his eyes light up, because I was always just buying this, these crazy amounts of storage and tech, and so it was kind of a fun business to be in just because it was always on the cutting edge. And then one day I woke up, and I was actually in London, England at a Bon Jovi concert, and my host sent me a text message saying, your bandwidth has dropped to 0 and your website's been moved to number 117 on Google. They decided to change their algorithm as they do, and I lived by the sword and died by it. So took the opportunity to get out of adult, started in mainstream, started kind of telling my story in non-adult circles, wrote a book, started building up startup shares and different things to try and advise companies on topics of scale and traffic and things that they weren't necessarily used to that I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I am today. I have a profitable online stock cartoon business. I'm a best-selling author of a book called Chronic Marketer. We can talk about that a little bit. And then, I advise a number of companies. I'm on the board at JB Zoo and a number of other companies around the net, and it's kind of what I do now.
Well, let's talk about, because obviously you have a lot of successful businesses that you're running right now, and your focus or specialty is scaling businesses. It sounds like you're looking for businesses that you're able to scale. In terms of our audience and what you're doing, one of the businesses that you're currently doing in Vectortoons.com, tell us a little bit about that. How you got started in Vectortoons, what it is, and see if maybe we can learn a little bit of something from your experience in developing that.
Of course. So Vectortoons got started sort of out of just a need. I had inventory. When I wrote my book about 2.5 years ago, I hired a cartoonist to draw some pictures of me. I've always loved cartoons. I've always been into the whole sort of, I've always liked using that in my marketing as opposed to just going to iStock and grabbing some white-toothed woman, that you see everywhere and sticking her on my sales copy or whatever it might be. So I had some custom cartoons drawn, and this girl was in the Philippines. She was really good, and hired her full time for a couple months to just draw tons and tons of different pictures of me. And when the book was done, and I had all this, this huge catalog of artwork, this girl was so good, I didn't want to let her go. I just kept her. So I just had her doing, in-house projects for me. Anything I needed, affiliate marketing stuff I was doing, banners, anything I needed done, I had her draw cartoons for. And before I knew it, I just had this big catalog of vectors sitting on my hard drive. And I said, got to monetize this more than just using them in my own stuff. I have this art bank. I might as well leverage it. And started cataloging it into a stock website, and Vectortoons was born out of that. I quickly saw, that this was one of those businesses that could scale, and scale is my middle name. I'm all about scale. So started hiring more cartoonists and building up the catalog, and now we have, a pretty good library. I think of about 6,000 individual vectors on our site. And we're adding to it every day. I've got 4 full-time cartoonists working on building up that catalog.
Excellent. I love that story because it just it shows you a different side, a different model of how to approach your artwork and creating an art-related business. A lot of the people that we speak to, we're talking to people in terms of they're the ones that are creating it. And how to leverage that and how to get the most out of that. And usually we're talking about, even in my case, if I'm talking about working with marketers such as yourself or something, I'm trying to get, the highest rate that I can possibly get for the work that I'm doing and add as much value as I can. But that's not really leverageable in terms of is project by project. And a lot of our readers and followers are in that boat for the most part. A lot of them are trying to get monetize their own stock libraries of art that they have available, and some are doing it successfully, and some are trying and not really, and kind of hitting the mark. How are you able to really get that Vectortoons going and drive? Because it's all about traffic. So how do you get traffic to Vectortoons or awareness of the site? So
I have a few different initiatives that I worked on. One of the big ones is gift cards. So I already have, as a marketer, I already have a big list of people. I already promote a lot of different products, and I can use gift cards to Vectortoons as kind of an incentive to buy other things. Or sometimes a marketer will come to me and say, "Hey, I've got some Photoshop template pack I want to sell," and I'll say, "Great, I'll promote it for you, but I want you to put a $10 gift card as a bonus to every buyer that you get." And basically what I did was, I've never talked about this before, but using a gift card coupon type system on an e-commerce platform, I've given away over $1 million to spend on that website in the last year, in $10 and $20 gift cards. And what happens is a percentage of those people will put more in their cart than the $10 and check out with and pay me through PayPal. And then of course I have the customer in my system, so I can remarket to them and do all kinds of other things. That's one facet, and that's worked really well for me. Although you have to kind of be prepared to look at it as a loss leader and say, okay, I'm giving up a certain amount of revenue to get customers in the door, but it works, and it scales.
But at the same time, that's not time out of your day. I mean, that's something that's already produced. There's something they're downloading. It doesn't really cost you nothing. I mean, they're getting value
exactly.
from. Yeah.
Yeah, I get the lifetime customer, which is what I'm after. I look at, I remember back in the day when AOL used to send out those 30-day trial CDs, and I kind of look at my gift cards as the AOL CD. It gets people in the door, gets them using the product, and hopefully they stay. And a lot of them do. So that's one facet, and then the other facet that's worked really well for me. Again, I haven't really talked about it. It's funny, you're the first person to ask me about traffic to Vectortoons. I've done a lot of interviews about it, and nobody really talks about this. But just to give you an idea,
By the way, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about that. And I've actually labeled this conversation the $2,000 call because I checked out your website and I saw that your 1-hour consultation with entrepreneurs and business people is $2,000. So I figured this is a $2,000 call right here. I appreciate it.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a quick. I think I can share a screenshot with you, right? Yeah, I can just do a.
Yeah, there's a thing in the upper left. I think if you that little green screen, third one down, you can click on that.
Got it. I'm going to show you guys a quick screenshot here, just so you can see. This is. I've never done this before, so bear with me. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
Okay. So this is the Google Webmaster Tools for Vectortoons, and as you can see, this month I've had 17 million search impressions and 90,000 clicks. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can look at my pretty face again. I had to pull that up because I couldn't remember the numbers, and I'm terrible with numbers, so I probably would have quoted something ridiculously off. So I just wanted to show that. So most of those impressions and clicks are not from Google Web Search; they're from Google Image Search.
Okay.
And what I've done differently, it's kind of proprietary knowledge, but it isn't. I mean, anybody can figure out what I'm doing. I leverage the metadata in the JPEGs that nobody ever leverages. So if you know anything about JPEG files or PDF files for that matter, you can embed metadata into them, and everywhere the JPEG goes, the data goes with it. You can have titles, descriptions, keywords, categories. There's like 1 million different metadata fields in a JPEG. And so what we do is we optimize every single preview image on our website, and we match the titles and the tags to the WordPress post that gets put up, and the EXIF data remains inside the JPEG, and Google looks at metadata in its ranking factors, and nobody uses it. Like, nobody's doing metadata. Or very few. I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people are using metadata. And I found that it gets me, really good results in the Google search, and it's the kind of thing that, you can do it right or you can do it wrong. We do it right. We properly catalog every image. The keywords match the image. There's no stuffing or falseness or trickery or any of that kind of crap going on. We don't do any link building. We don't do any of the kind of, SEO gaming kind of stuff that people do. I mean, I learned the hard way not to game the Google algorithm. I just play by the basic rules of optimizing content and building.
So how do you go about figuring out the keywords? I mean, obviously, there could be obvious. If it's a girl, sitting at a desk, it could be secretary or whatever, but or businesswoman or something to that effect. But how do you go beyond the basic on keyword selection or categorizing?
Well, I have a full-time person who catalogs my images, and I have I've actually built a system to do it where they have a database, they see the image, they plunk in all that stuff, and then they have a keyword tool that allows them to search Google autocomplete results and a Thesaurus API to pull in as many relevant keywords to match that image as possible.
Okay, excellent. Any questions, Bob?
I'm floored by the information here. This is just fantastic. Thank you for sharing it with us.
We should call it the $4,000 call.
I'm busy taking notes.
Prices went up.
I'm thinking, like, okay,
this consulting fee is now $4,000.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested to learn more about the adding meta, because I know that I'll do that every once in a while. Go into Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever and add those tags and all that kind of stuff. I never realized how powerful that was. So Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's really amazing information. And seeing your results, wow, 17 million. So when you get this stuff out there, and you've got this site here now. You're essentially competing with other people who put together stock sites and that kind of thing. How do you get seen above, say, somebody like the Stockhouse or whatever, any of these other guys? It looks like you're doing really well with that stuff. So how do you get out in front of those guys?
I don't know that I'm out in front of them, but I am beside them, if that makes any sense. So I
get it. Yeah.
I might come in the top 10 in most Google image searches for my images, and I found that most of the stock companies, with the exception of I think Shutterstock and iStock, I could be wrong about this, but most of the stock companies don't leverage metadata. And I just think it would probably be too difficult for them, or for whatever reason they never built it into their workflow, and I built it in day one. So not everybody's optimizing for it, and so that's helping a lot. But I also think Google is one of those machines, and again, I can't predict what Google does, but I think they're, the way that they work is the more they see people clicking on your images, the more they rank them. And so because my images are so well cataloged, they rank for the term, someone searching for, witch on a broom silhouette or whatever, boom, that's what I give them. I don't give them some pumpkin, or whatever. So we get the clicks, and then Google, keeps kind of pushing us to the top based on what people are clicking on. I think that's a big factor in how they look at everything, is who's getting the clicks.
Yeah, I think Google gives you extra Google brownie points for relevance, and the level of relevance in your searches and what people get in the results.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys I'm competing with are stock photo guys, not stock vector guys. And I found that the vector side of things is a much tighter niche. It's much more narrow. And so when somebody's looking for a cartoon, like, a lot of people don't search for vector; they search for cartoon, because they don't know what a vector is.
Right.
And so, where you look at a site like iStock, they catalog their vectors as vectors or as illustrations. You don't necessarily use the term cartoon. So when someone searches for cartoon, whatever, my stuff comes up, because it's one of the key phrases that we go after.
So you're really hitting phrases, you're really hitting phrases that people are more apt to use, and when looking for someone.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. All right, thanks. Sorry, guys. I'm just getting my windows cleaned here. Multitasking. Sorry. I'm back.
So the rules change quite frequently with Google, and you said you learned that the hard way. How do you keep up with that? I mean, I know that they have webmaster stuff that they send out and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, you really got to have a good grasp on what they're doing in order to get that SEO right.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually.
Really?
So here's my SEO strategy in a nutshell.
Right.
You guys will get a kick out of this, but I read an interview with Larry and Sergey in Wired magazine. I think it was like 2009. And one of the things they said, I read all the interviews with them and with Google engineers, because I'm always looking for some kind of an insight, but I'm not one of these people that's like tracking every algorithm change. In fact, I stay so far away from that stuff because I've been penalized. I kind of know not to follow the trend. What I do is I just do the basics. I do the on-page, and I do but I don't do any link building. I don't do any blog commenting. I don't do any of the other crap that a lot of people do. I don't do press releases. I don't do any of that stuff. I just optimize the content for their index, and I let them do the rest. And one of the things they said in the interview that always stuck out for me was, we wish webmasters would act as if we don't exist. And if you think about it, their entire system, PageRank, their entire algorithm is built around ignoring them. They want you, if you look at how their system works, one of the big things they always ranked people on was how many other websites were linking back to you. And so everybody decided, well, I have to do this link building, routine to get more links. But actually, that doesn't work. What I do is different. What I do is I do traffic building. I put my link up on websites, or I'll buy traffic from websites that can actually drive real traffic to my website, and I act I have certain base routines that I follow to just make sure that I have the basic SEO compliance in place, the metadata kind of stuff. Beyond that, I ignore Google. I go get traffic. I do deals with people. I put my bonuses on their web pages, which gets me links. I do a lot of link building, but not for the purpose of link building, for the purpose of getting real traffic and real customers. And Google notices that. They notice, hey, Vectortoons is out there making deals with other graphic sites, putting their link up on those websites, but we're not doing it in such a way where it's like, in the blog roll or what, we're doing it in a way where there's actually a co-branding deal going on. There's real back and forth business happening, and they spot that.
Yeah, that's such great advice, because for years all I've seen is it just seems like it's a trick. You gotta know just the right thing to do to just get in here, and then these sites get out there and all of a sudden they're getting all this traffic, and you're like, well, how is this guy doing it? So when you hear something like that, it's really refreshing, because that kind of it allows you to be a little bit more honest about your approach to things, rather than trying to find some sort of way to game the system.
Exactly, and I sleep better at night because I know, although as much as I didn't want to build another business that relied on Google, I kind of rely on them again. Sure. But I know that the way I'm relying on them now is not like before. The way I relied on them was with link building and was with sort of tricking the system, and I was always worried about losing that spot. Now I'm not worried because I'm not number one for stock vectors or anything like that. I don't have some great keyword that I rank for. It's thousands and thousands of long tail results.
Right. Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm so glad about that, because I've been trying to figure this thing out for years, and to hear somebody like you talking about it, it's very refreshing. So, yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your book, The Chronic Marketer. Can you talk about that?
Of course, yeah. So I one of the things I noticed early on when I started in online marketing was that most, not all, I don't want to pretend that every successful person is a pot smoker, but a good percentage of the really intelligent people at conferences were smoking weed.
They were smoking weed while at the conference?
Yeah. There's always some party in somebody's room, right? And I also, enjoy. So it was the kind of thing where I just kept noticing it over and over again. All these really intelligent people, and especially in your space, the creative people I work with. I mean, most of them love to get high. I'm not talking about heroin here. I'm talking about smoking weed. But I only do heroin on weekends.
That's how Bob lost his hair, smoking weed.
Yeah. Is it? I had a feeling it was drug related, but I wasn't going to say anything. And so I thought, this is an audience that nobody's speaking to. The sort of, pot smoking entrepreneur, or the pot, these days you can't just write a book about entrepreneurship. You need an angle. You got to have something unique that makes people want to buy your book. And I figured this was a good angle for me to speak to this audience, because I'm a part of that audience, and I would probably buy that book. And so what I did was, for about a year before I launched the book, like while I was still writing it, I actually built a list of potheads on Facebook. I used Facebook ads, and I targeted people who liked bongs and high times and all the other pot-related counterculture kind of stuff. And what I discovered was nobody was marketing to these people, and so the traffic was less than a penny per click. I mean, I was getting huge results in terms of people joining my list to download my free, called them Chronic Marketer white papers about entrepreneurship online, and built this massive following and list of potheads. And I kept telling them, my book is coming out on 4/20, April 20th. I want you to buy it on that day so I can hit the bestseller list. You're going to help me, become a best-selling author. I was very transparent about what I was trying to do. I didn't, I didn't BS them or anything like that. I made it really clear what my goal was, and that I needed their help to get there. And at the same time, I tapped every single affiliate that owed me a favor and asked them to mail the book link on launch day. And even affiliates that didn't owe me favors were happy to help, because everybody has a book in them, I think, and a lot of people like the idea that, hey, I helped this author get to the top of Amazon for his book launch, and maybe he'll help me when I launch my book. So I had a lot of support from friends and the affiliate community, plus my own list. So on April 20th, 2012, I ran a live, not a hangout, because we didn't have hangouts back then, but I ran a live Ustream where I was sitting in my office smoking bongs with my assistant and telling people to buy my book, and just ran this day-long campaign. Got to #1 in all the top business categories on Amazon, and got to number 40 on Amazon's top 100, and got to #1 on Movers and Shakers. I remember I was like beating Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Pete Townsend had a book launch, and I beat him, and all these like well-known guys, and I'm like beating them all. Became a self-published bestseller in one day.
Excellent. Now you mentioned placing ads. Were they Google ads, or because I know you also mentioned placing ad in your Vectortoons as well. In both instances, and even most of your other businesses, how do you approach selecting your marketing? Because I know a lot of illustrators don't do Google ads or online ads or any of that kind of stuff. How do you approach that, or how do you decide whether or not it's a viable way to go for you?
I think for me it's usually a test. I usually do some small tests. I dip my toe in the water and see what the traffic does. And if the traffic works out really well, then I go deep. And if it doesn't, then I'll try a few different things. And in many cases, in fact, Vectortoons is one of those products where I don't actually buy traffic. I've just found it to not work for me. Most of my products are $1, so it's really hard to make that work on a funnel system. Because usually it costs you up to $20 to acquire a customer. So if you're doing custom illustration, that might factor in. If you're selling a custom illustration for hundreds of dollars, then $20 acquiring fee for a customer isn't ridiculous. But for me, it doesn't make sense. Right. At least for Vectortoons. For my book, my book was a money loss. I didn't make money becoming a bestseller. I lost money becoming a bestseller, but I did it so that I could call myself a bestseller for the rest of my life. Right. Once you have that title, they can't take it away from you. So it was a loss leader to get me more stage talks, more advisory roles in companies, and just more visibility.
So it's more of a positioning kind of a vehicle.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. We've talked a lot about that as well. It's a powerful tool that you have in your marketing arsenal to position yourself among the right clientele is getting a book published. So excellent strategy. Have you used retargeting at all maybe not with your book? I know you mentioned you don't use advertising for Vectortoons, but with maybe some of your other things, and if so, what's been your experience with retargeting? Because I see a lot of people that do the whiteboard. You've seen it, like the whiteboard animation kind of stuff. I see a lot of retargeting with those companies, for example. Have you had any experience with that?
I've done a bit of retargeting with Vectortoons. It does bring back customers, and it does drive sales, and it is a fairly cheap way to do so. But I think it's a valid strategy. It's definitely worth doing. Again, for me, the ROI on the retargeting, just because my product prices are so low, isn't super.
Right.
And with Amazon, if you have a book on Amazon, they do all the retargeting for you. So I don't know if you know that or not, but if you go look at my book page on Amazon and then go to Facebook, you'll see ads from my book.
Right.
Amazon does it all for me.
Excellent. Cool.
Thinking like, you guys are talking about retargeting. I'm like, what?
Oh, you retargeting?
For those of us who don't know what retargeting is, maybe we can review that for just a second.
Brad, you want to back up? Can you explain retargeting for the viewers that don't know?
I can. I absolutely can. It's really simple. If you are on Expedia and you're searching for a vacation to Las Vegas, and then you start surfing around to all the other sites on the internet, Facebook, People Magazine, CNN, whatever, you're going to see ads for Vegas vacations, and it's not coincidence. It's retargeting. There's a cookie on your computer that says you were looking for this product or you were on this web page, and everywhere else you go on the internet, they can actually in real time pull that cookie and show the right ad to you based on your previous history.
Okay. So has that ever happened to you, Bob, where you're like surfing for a pair of shoes or something, and all of a sudden you go to some other site that's totally unrelated, and you see an ad for the pair of shoes that you were looking at?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. So Facebook is notorious for that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Everybody's been a buyer. online where you go to a website, you want to buy something, and then something else happens. You get an email or the phone rings or a text or whatever, and boom, you're gone, and you forgot that you even wanted to buy that thing, and then you see ads for it, and it reminds you to come back and buy it. It's actually the lowest hanging fruit in terms of paid ads.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I've seen that with Amazon frequently. If you go and you do a search there, they're pretty good with that kind of stuff. Sometimes I find it a little frightening that they seem to know everything, but I imagine it's probably a pretty simple process.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for cluing me in there. I felt like I was the only one who didn't know what was going on.
Brad will be
following
you everywhere you go now, Bob.
Yeah. little ads will pop up for the book or whatever. That's okay.
So, well, Brad, I appreciate your time and honestly the information that you've shared with us, and I really enjoyed meeting you a couple of weeks back, and it's a real pleasure and an honor to call you a friend and have that bridge open. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us today. Bob, do you have any other questions that you might want to ask Brad?
No, I'm just so.
Those are clean before he leaves.
I'm just so excited to hear all this stuff. I'm like, okay, now I got to go try it. So yeah, thanks for sharing your information with us. It's really cool.
I'm happy to. Your audience is mainly illustrators, right?
Mostly freelance illustrators, cartoonists, graphic designers, for the most part. Yeah.
So let me throw a couple of things out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just toss a couple of things out before I go. First one is I'm always hiring. So, if you're an illustrator or a cartoonist and you need extra work, you're probably best to reach out to me through Facebook or Twitter. Just Brad Gosse on Twitter, all one word. And shoot me your portfolio if you have stuff if you have a catalog you want to sell me, or you have work that you want to do in between jobs or whatever. I hire a lot of overseas labor, but that doesn't mean I'm always paying peanuts. I'm happy to talk to really talented people about what they do and maybe help them in some way. I'm always looking for talented people, so feel free to hit me up. My door's open there. But I was thinking about your audience before we had this hangout, and a couple of things came to mind that sort of stuck out for me. One of the things you were talking about when we had a private call was that, and I think you kind of hinted to this as well on this hangout, is that a lot of people are struggling with how to get higher rates for what they do, and I just as someone who buys a lot of illustration and is always looking for not higher rates but lower rates. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd give you at least an idea as to what I think might help there. You could take your existing pricing. Let's say just for the sake of discussion, you charge $100 for a custom illustration, maybe $1,000 or $5,000, whatever that number is. You could, in many cases, offer your clients two price levels. One price for exclusive rights to the illustration and one price for non-exclusive rights to the illustration. And that way, they could be half, right? It could be $1,000 for exclusive, $500 for non-exclusive, or something along those lines. But rather than cutting the non-exclusive price in half, double the exclusive price against your current value. And what you're going to find is most people want exclusive. Most people want to keep everything. I know I do as a buyer. But it gives you, if somebody wants something for less money, it gives you that option to keep it in your catalog and maybe sell the rights to somebody like me, or put them up on your own iStock portfolio, or whatever that looks like. So at least you can leverage that catalog a bit more.
Right. That's an excellent point. Just having that side-by-side comparison. Actually, Bob and I were just talking about that with something that he's going to be offering soon with some classes. But yeah, that's an excellent point. Is just to raise the one where you're releasing all of rights, and that's something that we illustrators are typically doing, is negotiating the rights purchase, because basically that's how you make your money is on the rights sold. So, and like you said, a lot of clients want everything, probably because they don't know what else they could use it for, and they just want to be able to not have to come back and renegotiate usage for something else down the line. So they want everything. So yeah, upping that price. And if budget is a factor, then just selling them what they need as opposed to trying to get the whole cart.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good advice, and we don't talk about that very often on the show, Carlos. We should probably get into a rights, copyrights and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff one of these days.
Now another interesting conversation that you and I had, Brad, prior to today's hangout was, it's funny, we were just about to let you go. Now we've reeled you back in.
We're good at that.
Open up a whole new can of worms. I know one of the things that you and I were talking about a couple of weeks back was, the business model. I mean, we always try to push, the highest rate, how to really position yourself, find the right market, find the right client, so you can position yourself as delivering the most value and really getting the most for your time, because your time is the most valuable thing as an illustrator when you're creating custom work. But your business is on the low end in terms of that a client is paying. So we were talking about the two very different business models, and it's not to say that one is better than the other. They're very different, and I think they can both coexist. I mean, I think we're always looking at charging more, but there's another opportunity there that you've been able to tap into, and you referred to it, if I remember correctly, in our call a few weeks back ago, is that your market is the do-it-yourselfers, people that want to be able, don't have the funds to hire a high quality professional illustrator. So they want to be able to do things themselves, and you're giving them that option through these lower tier products where they don't have to pay as much and they have more flexibility, but yet you're making the money and you're not having to sit there pumping out all these cartoons yourself. I mean, there's an element of leverage and scale, which is your expertise, that exists there. You want to talk a little bit about that, how those two different things can coexist for an artist, and how an artist can kind of leverage and scale their own work?
Yeah, and I also think there's some middle ground that that I haven't necessarily tackled. Obviously, most artists aren't gonna do well trying to build a catalog like mine with their own hand, because it's just going to take too much effort. Then not only do you have to be the illustrator, you have to be the site administrator and the marketer and the SEO guy and all of those things at the same time, unless you can unless you build out a staff. But I think that there's room for and this is just one example. I think there's tons of other examples, but as I see a lot of people in this DIY design space. There's that movement is not going away. There's more and more tools for people to build their own websites, design their own Photoshop documents, all that kind of stuff. And I think that most people today who are starting out their own online business think they can do everything themselves. Some of them can, some of them can't. But as an illustrator, one of the biggest challenges you face doing custom illustration is the revision process, just the dealing with customers, the pickiness, the back and forth bullshit that goes on. But when they ask you to start making things pop and make my logo bigger and stick make this guy's smile better or whatever. And I can't draw to save my life. I can barely draw a stick man, and that would drive me nuts if someone I hate revision rounds as a designer. I always hated revision rounds with people. So the benefit to having a catalog of ready-made stuff is someone sees something and they say, I like that, and they pay the price, and there is no revision round. But I think that there's a middle ground, and the middle ground is custom cartoons that these people that say, like, let's say I market to dentist's office, right? That's my market. I deal with dentists. You could be creating cartoons for people who market to dentists. And they could involve a dentist losing money on the internet, or they could be some kind of custom cartoon for a dentist with an empty speech bubble, so that the person buying it, whether it's the dentist or the dentist's receptionist or the marketer that works for the dentist, can buy that, can use that comic for whatever purpose it might be. It might be to get the dentist as the customer, or it might be for the dentist to get more child patients in because it's a comic of them being nice to a child, or whatever it might be. I think there's room for a sort of slightly more customized cartoon that caters to a certain profession or a certain industry or a certain vertical, and then going deep on that and saying, okay, I deal with, my market is dentists, and I'm going to draw all these cool cartoons for dentists to use in their marketing, and then now you're in this great vertical. you're dealing with a professional client who's probably willing to pay a little bit more than $1 per cartoon. You might be able to sell, your cartoons for $50 a piece, or and there's ways to add value to that. You can sell them framed versions, and all. There's all kinds of print-on-demand services that will allow you to do posters and postcards and all that kind of stuff that they can buy from you, and you can make a profit from a lot of that stuff. And even having maybe some kind of software system that allows people to plunk in their own captions and their own verbiage into those cartoons to make them unique to their business. I think there's a huge market there for that type of sort of semi-premium but still off-the-shelf illustration market.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bob and I, it's funny, great minds think alike. Bob and I have talked about in the past about that whole dentist situation, which I ended up getting a call, or just to quickly kind of recap it. It was an illustrator that got in touch with me and didn't know what to do with their whimsical illustration. The children's book market was kind of drying up for them, and they couldn't really figure out what to do with it. And that was in my head, just kind of knocking around for a bit. And I took a couple of days later, I took my youngest kid to a pediatric dentist. And when I walked in, I noticed there was all sorts of whimsical tooth-related cartoons and framed art and pieces all over the place. And I asked her, is there a place that you guys that supplies this dentist-oriented kind of art-themed art for your pediatric office? And she said, no, usually my sister, picks things up at garage sales or, whatever, whenever they see something. And it got me thinking. I said, wow, there's like a whole industry here. And I asked the lady, I said, well, is there like an organization or an association that pediatric dentists belong to? And she says, yeah, there's a National Pediatrics Association, and they have usually like yearly or every bi-yearly meetings, and they usually have like meetings, even regional chapters, where it's not just pediatric dentists, but pediatric doctors, anything having to do with pediatrics. And I said, wow, and I called Bob and I said, wow, there's like a whole industry here that I haven't heard anybody tap into. And it's like you say, it's like finding something and you go deep into it, and it's all white collar, they have money, and they're willing to spend it, obviously, on their offices to make the kids feel comfortable and create that environment for them. So there's a whole industry there, and that's just one example, but you're absolutely correct.
I have a catalog of just as a for instance, I have a catalog of tooth emojis. I have, I think, 50 different teeth with different faces on them and in different poses. And one of the things we looked at doing, we just haven't done it yet. It's on I have a giant whiteboard full of stuff I haven't done yet, and it'll always be there. But one of the things on that list was to start pushing that artwork into like the sticker type space. So you get these cool teeth with all these funky faces and all that kind of stuff, and then you go to like a Zazzle.com or you go to one of the other print-on-demand sites that does stickers, and you start offering stickers, right? You can offer a pack of 50 different tooth emoji stickers to dentist office and charge a premium for the printed version of the. So they're not getting the vectors now; they're getting that. They're getting the printed material. There's a lot of ways to leverage the print-on-demand services that are out there, and just go deep on a certain vertical. And it doesn't have to be dentists. There's chiropractors, there's insurance agents, there's realtors. I mean, there's a million different professions out there that need this kind of stuff, custom made. And once you make it, and if it applies to one dentist office, well, there's thousands of dentists' office. So I mean, it's a great way to leverage your talent in a new and exciting way.
Yeah, and even if you went that route, I mean, just to throw an idea out there for anybody that this might be ringing true for, you can even offer your cartoons at a higher rate if you're offering to work with maybe even one dentist office per zip code or per area within a certain radius. Because I mean, dentists aren't generally drawing customers in from 30 miles or whatever. You know what I mean? So, but there could be 15, 20, 25 different dentists within a certain area where you can develop a whole marketing campaign around your cartoons for them to reactivate customers that haven't been in a while, and really kind of just get more creative with what you're offering other than just the cartoons as well, right?
Yeah, you could offer a portfolio of marketing materials to dentists, right, where you're giving them postcards and letters and business cards and newspaper ads and all the collateral that they need using the same artwork, and then offer same kind of thing, two-tiered pricing, exclusive, non-exclusive.
Right.
If you want, I mean, one of the things in another business I had years ago was, we would do these exclusive territory deals, and we always based it on population because it was the easiest way to look at it. So we would say, your territory exclusivity requires you to spend $5,000 for every million people in your town. If you live in Chicago and you've got 5 million people, it's a $25,000 deal. And that in many cases you'll get those exclusive deals, or you'll get people who say, I don't really need exclusivity, I'll pay your lower price. Right. But it gives you, again, another way to charge a premium for what you're doing, and you're not doing anything more. You're just promising not to sell to the guy next door.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's are you familiar with a cartoonist named Stu Heineck?
No.
He was an old New Yorker cartoon. Well, he's not old, but he's been doing cartoons for the New Yorker for a long time. He actually developed a site. I think he's got 3 or 4 other cartoonists that work in the New Yorker as well with him. The site is called cartoonlink.com, and he sells to the upscale. He sells to a lot of big companies, a lot of sales reps that are looking to make those big deals and those big contacts with those big CEOs and stuff. And he's basically reused a lot of those older cartoons that because they've got like hundreds and thousands of them. And he's created, like what you mentioned before, is like what reminded me of Stu, is that what you mentioned before where you're customizing the dialogue, you're able to customize and insert a person's name into the gag. So if it's the CEO you're trying to get a meeting with, you're able to insert his name in there, and they even have a marketing department. Well, they'll reach out and find the person that you need to reach in order to make that deal, the contact person within that big organization, and really kind of set everything up. So they've added value by really doing the marketing aspect of it and really making the connection. But they'll give them this like frameable print with their name in there, nicely boxed with a nice letter. I mean, it's really packaged really nicely. It's very upscale. I think it's like, I can't remember. It's like $10,000 to try to reach like maybe 250 people or 200 people, and it's set up in different campaigns like that. But basically, he's taking what you just said and taking that same idea and market it towards a larger high-end, clientele, which I think is really kind of cool.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many different ways to slice this. It's just really phenomenal.
I think I think out of anything, the hardest part of being an illustrator, and I'm not an illustrator, but from looking from the outside as someone who hires illustrators, I think the hardest job is to do custom work because it's so laborious. It's so you have to grind it out to get the client, then you have to grind it out to do the work and do the revisions and deliver the the final product, and then you have to start from scratch. My dad was in the car business, and he used to always say on the first of the month we're all assholes because all the sales are wiped off the board and we're all assholes again. And and that's what happens, right? Is you start out, every time you close a deal and you get that customer, you have to stop drumming up business so you can do the work. And then when you're done the work, you have to go back to the work of drumming up business. Once that paycheck comes in, you're an asshole again. You got to go get another customer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge I think we all face is having to wear those two hats, those multiple hats, and kind of balance the two. You can't spend all your time illustrating because eventually you're gonna run dry, and somebody's got to be doing the marketing, right? And if you're just doing the marketing, at some point you've got to either be doing the illustrations or hire, like you've done, hire out and do it.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think we've milked enough out of your you must feel depleted at this point.
We're gonna
as long as you got your $2,000 worth, I'm happy.
Oh no, you were right. It was actually closer to 4.
Good. I don't want to do any revision rounds on this one.
Let's see if we can spark another conversation, get you going for another half hour.
Brad, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. I think this has been probably one of the more valuable calls we've done up to this point. We've really picked your brain, I think, as much as we can at this point, and it's really, I mean, we joke about being a $4,000 call. Honestly, there's ideas here that can make someone's career if they choose to follow up on it, and I think you'll agree. Yeah. So thanks again for joining us. I mean, it's a pleasure, and hopefully we'll be able to we'll be speaking again, but hopefully we'll be able to get together and maybe work together on something down the road.
That'd be awesome.
Excellent.
So I have one last question for you before we let you go. We ask this of everybody we interview. Is there some place that you'd like people to find you, or something that you'd like people to find that you've done? I know that you had your book, or maybe you wanted to promote something that you're working on now.
You know what? Vectortoons is probably the best way to find me, and I think I mentioned my Twitter handle is just Brad Gosse, all one word. And you know, if you're an illustrator and you're watching this, I don't really have anything to sell you, but I could probably buy some stuff from you. So hit me up. You know, maybe we can do some business. I'm open to that.
That sounds great. Thanks so much.
Excellent. So if you want to also check out his book, Chronic Marketer: Confessions of a Half-Baked but Highly Paid Internet Marketer. I love the title.
That's the best.
Check him out on Amazon. We'll put all the links for you, Brad, so people can find you in several different ways. Thanks again, pal. I love having you on, and I love your energy, man. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen.
Take care.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Drawn by Success. Hanging out Friday with Bob and Carlos and just kind of talking about slamming around all sorts of information. Hopefully you got something useful out of this. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube underneath the video, and if you're watching it on the Drawn by Success site, leave a comment there and let us know what you think. Later, guys. Till next week. Thanks, guys.
Okay, take care, everybody.